Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started in just about 1 minute and let a couple more people join us. Thanks again. Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar today, the ROI of Employer Branding. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a couple housekeeping tips before we get started today. We're going to give you a short and sweet webinar. We want to leave as much time as possible for Q&A at the end, so we'll breeze through this really quick. So audio is either streaming over the web for you or you've dialed in, so just make sure that you're muted. We'll try to mute you as well to avoid all that background noise. And like I said, we want to keep some time at the end for Q&A. So feel free at any time to put your question in the Q&A box. We'll go ahead and answer as many as possible at the end of the session. And as always, we like to keep things pretty social around here. So feel free to join the conversation using the hashtag GDChat on Twitter or whatever social media handles you'd like to use. And now I'd like to pass things on over and firstly introduce our featured speaker today, Mallory Dose. Both of us are coming to you live from our Dublin office, so we're excited to be here with you. Mallory is a sales manager of Glassdoor EMEA. She's been at Glassdoor for many, many years and is a professional at what she does. So I'll hand things on over to her now to get us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Shay. To give you the overview of the agenda and what we're going to be covering today, first laying some groundwork and talking about what is an employer brand, why it matters, and then most importantly, some ideas around how to calculate the ROI on employer brand. So we'll save time at the end, as Shay mentioned, for Q&A after we recap some key takeaways. So to kick things off, what is an employer brand? I think it's a relatively new concept for a lot of companies, and it's not just one thing. It's really a combination of 4 key elements. So we're going to cover what those are, including your reputation, your culture, your mission and values, and most importantly, your people. So to start, I think everyone knows that developing an effective employer brand is really the foundation for having an effective recruitment strategy. So those two things, go hand in hand, and having a really good reputation. So being known as a place that candidates want to work is going to drive more quality candidates into your pipeline. So your brand is really your reputation, and if you don't take part in defining it, somebody else is going to. With the rise of social media, your message is out there. People are talking about your company, whether you want them to or not. So don't ignore it. Take part in the conversation and think about your reputation, how you're being perceived, and if that's in line with who you want to be as an employer. So moving on to culture, your culture, it's a combination of your people, the work environment, the work-life balance, as well as the opportunity for growth and development. According to a Human Capital Trends report by Josh Bersin, culture became one of the most important business topics of last year. CEOs and HR leaders now recognize that your culture is really driving people's behavior, your innovation as a business, customer service, and 82% of leaders feel that it's giving them a competitive advantage. So despite all this, despite everyone knowing that it's really, really important, 87% of organizations still cite culture and engagement as one of their top challenges. And I think this is due to the fact that culture is not fully understood. It's tough to measure, it's tough to manage, which is why it's important to take a proactive approach at defining your culture and how you're going to measure success. And keep in mind, you don't need to be Google or Facebook or a large tech company to have a really great company culture. So think about the things that you're already doing. You probably have some really special things going on that are unique to you, unique to your business. So think about what's working and build off of that. Your mission and values, so another piece of your employer brand, and this is something that should really empower your employees. So job seekers aren't the only people researching your mission and values. Potential investors and customers are also looking at this and taking this into consideration when they're deciding if they want to invest in you or do business with you. Employer brand is a key indicator of future success in a business, so it's an important metric that these people are looking at. So have a mission statement that your employees can stand behind, that they can believe in, and let this drive your hiring decisions. It's going to be something that's motivating your teams through tough times. So if you think you have a clear mission statement, one way to test this out is to ask one of your newest employees if they know what it is. And if they're able to recite it, you're on track. And lastly, when it comes to what makes up your employer brand, it's your people. So these are your biggest brand asset, and they're the most powerful voice that you have in your arsenal. Employees rank amongst the most trusted influencers when communicating about their company's engagement and integrity. So this stat talking about employees being 3 times more credible than your CEO when talking about working conditions, that makes sense. If I'm a future employee of your business, I want to know what the other people in my department are saying, how they feel about the day-to-day. So leverage your employees as brand ambassadors. Use them to get your employer brand message out there to their networks, and really lean on them. So to kind of wrap up, your employer brand, it's not straightforward. It's made up of a few things: your reputation, your culture, mission and values, and your people. And let's kind of look at why all of this matters. So, do you want to move on to the next slide? Oh, sorry, a little delay there. But it is a candidate-driven market. So having a well-defined employer brand is going to be really essential when you're attracting people and retaining talent. 74% of active job seekers are more likely to apply to a job if the employer is taking part in actively managing their employer brand. So for kind of those best-in-class hiring organizations, they've already taken measures to strengthen their brand. They're already investing in this, and it's giving them a step ahead of the competition when attracting people and recruiting, but it also tends to help them in other key areas as well. A recently published study also found that companies with positive online employee reviews have a recruiting advantage as well, versus those with negative or neutral reviews. So I think what this shows is that workers view online reviews by employees as a reliable source of information. They're using this information to form an opinion, to make a first impression about your business and decide, is this a place that they want to apply? Is this a place that they want to work? So people are more likely to send in their resume to a company after they see these online reviews. So it's important, don't ignore it, know what's being said out there about you, and take part in actively managing your reputation. The other key piece that came out of this study, in terms of how this is influencing candidate behavior, is how much they're asking for in salary is directly related to your reviews online. So I think this is a good example to kind of tee up some of the financial implications that a strong employer brand can have on your business. And it's not just one data point, kind of like how your employer brand isn't just one thing. It's made up of a combination of a few aspects of your business. So the same thing is true when you're actually calculating the ROI on your employer brand. A lot of work, time goes into creating a brand, so it's important to know how well this is working and have a system to track success. So these are a couple of the key data points that you might want to look at when you're putting together a business case for employer brand and investing in your employer brand. A lot of these metrics, cost per hire, source per hire, I think we traditionally think of them as falling under the HR umbrella because it has to do with recruiting. But this all plays into the brand that you're building. So keep in mind the marketing side of things as well, because those two pieces go hand in hand when you're managing your reputation, building your employer brand. So I want to start with employer brand reputation as a data point to be tracking, because this is really foundational to everything else. I think your reputation has to do with traditional media, PR, social media, review sites like Glassdoor. So it's important for you to understand how people are perceiving you, what's being said, what are the trends and the messages, and kind of put together a portfolio of all of this content so you can actually think about your reputation strategically and kind of build out that reputation moving forward. So cost per hire, another metric that I know a lot of companies are already calculating, but it's kind of the flip side to time to fill. So we know that the longer it takes to fill, the more that it's going to cost you. And when you see the cost go down, you're also going to see your time to fill go down. So these are some important numbers to watch and keep top of mind. Source per hire is one of the most important metrics, especially when putting together your budget plans and asking for more dollars next year. So before you put together any kind of recruiting or employer brand project, have a baseline of what's already working, have some things in place to be able to measure and track these things. So know, where are people applying from. But also keep in mind that source per hire, typically candidates are interacting with more than one source. So also, think about what is influencing them, where they're going to get information about your business, and if you have the right content in all of those places. Another interesting data point, and I think this is probably taking things to the next level, is looking at candidate quality. It's a difficult thing to measure, but having some sort of scorecard in place and having it be really data driven is going to help take some of that subjectivity out of recruiting and have it based on data to help recruiters find the best quality candidates for your business. So I think we know that there is a lot of subjectivity that goes into recruiting. It is kind of an art, it is a science, but if you have a scorecard like this, it's going to help your interviewers ask the right questions to hit on all these key data points and help you, ideally make better decisions when it comes to hiring and recruiting. A lot of companies, they're not in these rapid growth periods where they can really just get butts in the seats and they want quantity. Quality is really, really important. Every single person is really critical to the business. So kind of think about some of those A players that you have versus the Bs, how much more revenue and things like that they're driving for your business. And this is going to help you just get more of those As. Talent pool development, this is the next data point. So we know that a lot of effort goes into getting people kind of into that top of funnel. But if they aren't the right fit for your company, it's going to create a lot more work for some of your recruiters. So I think we'd all prefer less total candidates if the candidates we had were the right people for those positions. So yes, less is more, but we still want to nurture those people and I guess create more of that more, if that makes sense. So knowing that you're going to get more candidates coming in than you could hire, it's not a one-to-one ratio. Keep that in mind. It might not be the right time for that person to come into your business now, but nurture them for the future because you never know, what could happen down the road, and you want to have those people kind of in your talent community. And when everything's working together, when you have a strong employer brand, you have a clearly defined mission, values, your culture, you're investing in your culture, your people are happy, they believe in your mission, you're going to see less turnover, and so you're going to have a lot less people, open positions that you're going to have to backfill, so you can kind of focus on that growth, new hires. And on the other side of cost per hire, another metric is time to fill. So it kind of pulls it all together. It is an important metric. If you have a really strong employer brand, you're attracting the right people, it makes sense that it would be a lot quicker to hire them and to bring them on board. My one caveat here is that, we all know different positions do take different amounts of time. So just because you're bringing in somebody fast doesn't mean that they're going to be the right fit. But I think, if you're looking at your recruiting as a whole, and if you're seeing a trend that a lot of your open positions take a lot of time to fill versus just one of those one-offs, I think that's an indicator that something's not working, and it probably has to do with your employer brand, and it's a good opportunity to kind of reevaluate and make some improvements. And the last metric that I think is really critical but not a lot of companies are looking at is how engaged are their employees. We know that engaged employees, they're going to work harder, they're going to be more satisfied, happier, more productive in their role, and they're going to be great advocates for your company, which in turn is going to help you recruit better quality people. So it's all coming full circle. And I think a lot of companies are moving away from the traditional engagement surveys, but it's still important to keep a pulse on how your employees are feeling, what is the sentiment, so whether that be some pulse surveys, using the Glassdoor ratings, keep track of that. Keep your people engaged because this is going to impact your bottom line. It is going to be a really good metric to use when building the business case to invest in your employer brand. So wrapping up before some Q&A with some key takeaways. So we covered kind of the 4 key pieces that go into your employer brand. So your reputation, culture, mission and values, and your people. So it's important to know that all of these play into recruiting and to use some of those data points to measure how successful and how well your employer brand is resonating externally. And it's not, I think, probably my last key takeaway, not on this list, but it's not as simple as one data point or one thing. It's an ecosystem. They all work together. So it's, kind of looking at all these different metrics to kind of see the full picture and the full story. So now that I've just talked at you for 20 minutes, we'll kind of wrap up with some Q&A. So if you have anything, put it in the chat box.
Okay, thank you, Mel. There are a couple questions here. So the first one being, what are some ways that I can make sure that I'm keeping my employees engaged?
That is a really great question. So I think one of the most important things that you can do is to continually ask for feedback. But I guess on the flip side of that, show your employees that you're listening. So don't just get feedback and then do nothing with it. If you're seeing trends in their feedback, show your employees that you're really trying to improve to be the best employer that you can be for them. I mean, be honest about limitations that you have, but at the end of the day, employees want to feel heard, so let them know that you're listening.
Great, and I'll add here too that we have a ton of resources, like Mel mentioned, on our website. So if you go to glassdoor.co.uk/employers, there's a resources tab where you can find a ton of templates for employee engagement emails, there's ebooks, there's all of this great information. So I'll just add that really quick right there. Next question. If I haven't, how should I get started on Glassdoor?
Another good question. So we're going to send out a link to help you claim your free employer account. So that's a good way to start engaging with the content that's currently on your profile, start getting involved in the conversation. You can also go in there and update if your company information is out of date, get that updated, add some photos, and just give your candidates who are researching you on Glassdoor a little bit more to sink their teeth into. And this will kind of help you start to monitor the traffic, monitor some of the trends in your reviews, and we can always talk about enhancing your profile down the road if it makes sense.
There's a couple questions about sharing this recording afterwards, and absolutely, we will include a link to the presentation so that you can share this with any of your colleagues and use this information post-webinar. Okay, so another question, what if our reviews aren't really reflective of our company and its brand? What do we do?
That's a good question too. And I think, when I typically hear this from employers, it's not that their reviews are bad. It usually has to do with the fact that they don't have enough reviews. So if you're a company of 250 people and you only have 3 reviews on Glassdoor, it's probably just not an accurate reflection of what it's really like to work there. Candidates want to read between 7 to 10 reviews. So I think just giving them a more robust picture. And when we talk about ways to actually ask your employees to comment on Glassdoor and ask for that feedback, one thing to keep in mind is, don't ask for 5-star reviews. Like that, I have definitely seen backfired. But if, it's how you message it to them. So ask them to leave some genuine, authentic feedback. Let them know you want to hear about their experience. Show them that their feedback's important to help you improve. But also, put it in their best interest. We're recruiting, we're growing, and we want to make sure that the candidates we're bringing in, the new people that are coming into our business, are going to, come in with the right expectations, know what it's all about, but gel really well with that department or with the culture of the company. So let everybody know that their feedback is really important to be able to do so. And make sure that you're asking for authentic feedback.
I'll add here too that there's a couple questions about how you can keep your employees engaged, and there's a couple tricks and tips that we have. I'll include an employee engagement toolkit in the follow-up to this webinar so that you can easily download that. There's some email templates, a printable poster. There's a couple signs you can print off, but some other tips I would say that we've seen our clients do is if you have a recruiting or talent team, have them add check us out on Glassdoor into their signatures so that as they're emailing with candidates can easily see what it's like to work from your employees at your company. Another thing to do that a lot of companies don't realize that Mallory is mentioning is just ask. Ask for that feedback. Ask in a company meeting, in a huddle, in a team meeting. As she mentioned, you're not asking for a glowing 5-star review, but simply showing that you care and you're willing to look at that feedback and you're asking for feedback to actually make the company better.
Another thought is sometimes I've seen companies who say when it's coming from HR, it sounds like forced or they feel a little weird about that or they haven't gotten the best response from their employees when they ask and the ask is coming from HR. So you could try, have the CEO, if he's on board, ask. That's a surefire way to get people to do something. Or if there are some departments that you're recruiting for, have the head of that department ask. Have the ask come from a few different people if it's not really resonating when HR is asking.
One more tip too is during the onboarding process, typically after 30, 60, 90 days of onboarding a new candidate, they're still very excited, very happy, loving their experience. So that's a great time to ask for feedback as well. So we've seen clients do this in many different ways, but little things such as printing out a poster, having it in your sign-in doc on your iPad at the front of your office, on a TV screen somewhere flashing, leave a review on Glassdoor. There's so many things you can do. So I'll make sure that I include the employee engagement toolkit in the follow-up to this email as well. Okay, here's one more question. I noticed my competitors' jobs are on my profile. How do I get those off?
Oh, that's a good question. So everything that we're doing on Glassdoor is based on relevance to the user. So depending on who you are, if you're viewing Glassdoor as though you're a candidate, you're going to see the relevant content, relevant jobs. So every person's experience would be different. If I was a software engineer in London, I would see software engineering jobs in London on your page. One way, if at some point in the future it makes sense, if you partner with Glassdoor, we have some employer solutions that allow you to take ownership of this page, keep the message really focused on you, remove those competitor jobs, and actually sponsor your jobs throughout Glassdoor and get in front of some of those people that aren't thinking about you.
Great. One more question, too. I've been hearing a lot of companies have strategies around responding to reviews. Is this something I should be doing?
So my thought, and I encourage every company I work with to respond to reviews. Sometimes employers will tell me, like, hey, if I respond to a review, does that mean we're validating that as true? And I think that might not be the best way to look at it, because it is, it's one person's experience, it's one person's opinion. So respond to reviews, both the positive and maybe the more critical reviews, and think about it from how a candidate would be researching you. So do it, on behalf of that person to show, to give your voice and kind of give your side of whatever it is that person's saying. So, be tactful, thank them for giving the feedback, explain, what it is that you're doing to address some of the issues that are brought up, or, if it was very positive, hey, so glad that you're having a great experience, it's people like you that make this company great, whatever it is, but it's not going to cause this kind of back and forth. It's not like a discussion board. The employer does get the last word, so I highly encourage that you respond to it. And again, our employer site has, which is glassdoor.co.uk/employers, has just a ton of great resources, tips for responding to reviews, what other companies have done. So check that all out.
Yes, so hopefully that answers your question, Hannah. If you go to that website, glassdoor.co.uk/employers, there's a resources tab at the top. You should be able to sort by, different client testimonials or videos or ebooks or guides. All that good stuff is there. So we really want to help you guys, navigate through some of these things on our site, like Mal said, including responding to Glassdoor reviews. Okay. I think that's it. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in. We'll hang on for one more minute, but thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, we'll go ahead and send out some of those materials as soon as the webinar concludes by tomorrow morning. And thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on another Glassdoor webinar in the future. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.